In this lesson, we'll look at two examples of determining the equation of hyperbola given the two foci, as well as the eccentricity. Recall the transverse axis of hyperbola is the axis passing through the origin. Notice on the left, the hyperbola has a horizontal transverse axis. On the right, the hyperbola has a vertical transverse axis. When we have a horizontal transverse axis, the equation of the hyperbola will be in the form of the square of x minus h divided by a squared minus the square of y minus k divided by b squared equals 1. When we have a horizontal transverse axis, we have the square of the x part minus the square of the y part. When we have a vertical transverse axis, we have the square of the y part minus the square of the x part. And we can see from the two graphs, a is the distance from the center to either vertex, and c is the distance from the center to either focus. We can determine the value of b using the equation c squared equals a squared plus b squared, and the eccentricity equals c divided by a. Let's look at our first example. We are given the two foci are 0, 12 and 0, negative 12, and the eccentricity equals 1.5. Let's plot the two foci, 0, 12, and 0, negative 12. Because the transverse axis passes through the two foci, we know we have a vertical transverse axis, and therefore the equation will be in the form of the square of the y part minus the square of the x part equals 1. We also know that the center will be the midpoint of the segment with the foci as the endpoints, which indicates the center is the origin. Let's go ahead and record this. The center indicates the value of h and k. And therefore h equals 0 and k equals 0. And then finally, the distance from the center to either focus is equal to c, which indicates, in our case, c equals 12. So we know c equals 12. We don't know a and we don't know b, but we need a squared and b squared to write the equation. Well, we are given the eccentricity equals 1.5, which is equal to 3 halves. So the eccentricity is equal to 3 halves, which equals c divided by a, and we know c equals 12, which gives us the proportion 3 halves equals 12 divided by a. And now to solve for a, we can cross multiply or recognize if we write 3 halves with a numerator of 12, we can determine the value of a. We multiply 3 halves by 4 over 4. Notice a equals 2 times 4, 8, which is what we need. So now we know a equals 8. And now we can use the equation c squared equals a squared plus b squared to determine b squared, or if we want b. If we solve this equation for b squared, we have b squared equals c squared minus a squared, which in our case indicates b squared is equal to c squared, or 12 squared, minus a squared, which is 8 squared. B squared is equal to 144 minus 64, which is equal to 80. We can stop here. We do want to find b. We take the principal square root of both sides. b equals the square root of 80. 80 is equal to 16 times 5. The square root of 16 is 4. The square root of 80 simplifies to 4 square root of 5, which is approximately 8.9. Again, we don't need this unless we're actually going to graph the hyperbola. We're only asked to find the equation, and now we have all the information we need. Notice because h and k are both 0, the equation will be y squared divided by a squared, which is the square of 8, or 64, minus x squared divided by b squared, where b squared equals 80, equals 1. Before we look at the second example, let's take a look at this graph. So here we have the graph of the given hyperbola. Remember, we did find a equals 8, which is verified by clicking on the two vertices. We have 0, 8 and 0, negative 8. We also have a vertical transverse axis where the center is the origin. And now let's look at a second example. Now the two foci are 9, 0 and negative 9, 0. Again, let's go ahead and plot those 2 points. Now we have a horizontal transverse axis which indicates the equation will now be in the form of the square of the x part minus the square of the y part equals 1. Once again, notice the center is the origin, because it would be the midpoint of the segment where the two foci are the endpoints. Once again, this indicates that h equals 0 and k equals 0. And the distance from the center to either focus is 9 units, which indicates c equals 9. And now we need to work on determining a and b. Eccentricity is equal to 3 if we want 3 divided by 1, which must equal c divided by a, where c equals 9 and we don't know a. Multiplying the numerator and denominator of 3 over 1 by 3, notice a equals 3. And now we can find b, or b squared, using the equation c squared equals a squared plus b squared. If we want b squared equals c squared minus a squared, which is equal to the square of 9 minus the square of 3. B squared is equal to 81 minus 9, which is equal to 72. Again, we can stop here. If we do want to find b, though, we would take the principal square root of both sides. b equals the square root of 72. 72 equals 36 times 2. The square root of 36 is 6. The square root of 72 simplifies to 6 square root 2, which is approximately 8.5. And again, because we have a horizontal transverse axis, the equation will be in the form of the square of the x part minus the square of the y part equals 1. Because h and k are both 0, the equation is x squared divided by a squared, which is the square of 3, or 9, minus y squared divided by the square of b, which is equal to 72, equals 1. Again, let's go ahead and verify this by analyzing the graph of the hyperbola, where because a equals 3, the distance from the center to either vertex should be 3 units. So here's the graph of the hyperbola. Notice we do have a horizontal transverse axis, and starting at the center, one vertex is 3 units to the right, and the other vertex is 3 units to the left. I hope you found this helpful.